Let's go live now to Senator Rex Patrick. Thanks so much for your time, Senator. Are you any closer to supporting this package of legislation?
Well, the party still remains of the view that we have to be very careful about moving forward with this. It's a $158 billion decision. We would like to see taxpayers get extra money in their pocket, as Minister Cormann has suggested there, but we need to be very sure that that we don't end up with a structural change that later becomes unaffordable. And they're the sorts of discussions that I've been having with the government.
So what did you ask Senator Cormann yesterday, and what reassurances did he give you?
Well, in actual fact, Senator Cormann played only a small part in the discussion. He hosted the meeting, but much of the discussion was, in fact, with Minister Canavan, where we talked about energy prices. In fact, tax wasn't mentioned at all throughout the day.
Why not?
Well, because we were focusing on an issue that Centre Alliance has, and that is in South Australia here we have very, very high power prices. The power prices are set by the gas prices, and right now we are paying more for gas than our Asian friends who are actually using our gas as the same gas. It doesn't make sense.
So what were you talking to Matt Canavan about? And seeing that Matthias Cormann only played a small role, I mean, are these just friendly chats, or is this getting down to business? Is there some kind of deal that's tied to you passing the tax cut package?
Look, there's no question there's a relationship. We don't want to have the tax cuts go back into people's pockets only then to be funneled to energy companies. And it's also important to make sure that our economy is competitive moving forward. You know, if our energy prices are high, that affects our economy in an absolute sense, but also in a competitive sense. It doesn't matter whether you are making fish and chips, whether you are running a TV station, or whether you're running a chemical plant. One of the inputs to that is energy. It affects the entire economy. So we're having a serious discussion with the government about how to address, in particular, gas prices.
So will you pass the tax cut package if you don't get a deal on gas, some kind of reassurance on gas?
Well, you know, we've made our concerns pretty clear to the government, and we're working through some of our concerns with the government. The party hasn't come to any particular conclusion, but what I am happy to say is that the government is listening to us on energy and taking us seriously.
So is there a deal or not? Because Matthias Cormann said no horse trading, no deals, but you certainly seem like you want one.
What I want to do is make sure that we end up with a situation where consumers are paying proper prices for electricity. For too long, we have paid way too much. It's hurt people. You know, we've got a situation here in South Australia where we have pensioners who don't turn the air conditioners on in summer and they don't turn the heaters on in winter, and that's an unacceptable situation. Now, in my conversations with Matt Canavan, it's clear to me that he was alive to the issue of gas prices and had already been doing some work. You know, perhaps all I'm doing is focusing some effort on that particular work that was already being done. OK,
will it involve quarantining a certain amount of gas for domestic use rather than it being sent overseas?
Well, when I held my discussions with Matt Canavan, we spent probably the first 3 hours just making sure we were on the same playing field in terms of understanding what the problem was. Then we looked through a whole range of different solutions to the problem, and there were some long-term solutions put up, there were some short-term solutions put up. Lots and lots of things were explored, including adjustment of the Australian domestic gas security mechanism, including issues relating to transparency, a range of different solutions that the government are now looking at to see what gives the best effect.
OK, just to be very clear on the tax package, what particular element are you concerned about, and what will it take for you to support it?
Look, we are concerned that the tax will get returned to mums and dads and then simply be taken away by energy companies. We're also concerned with the long-term performance of the economy, making sure that if we make these structural changes, we don't get into a situation where 2 or 3 years down track, the economy is not doing well. The revenue that was otherwise there because of these because of the taxes, we don't end up cutting education, health and aged care services. That's our focus.
Okay, so will a reassurance in that sense be enough from the Treasurer and the Finance Minister, or do you want to see, concrete safeguards in legislation? Because, an economic downturn, as you are concerned about the long-term health of the economy and structural change, these are difficult things to, I guess, legislate for when it's, a bit of a subjective issue 4 or 5 years away.
Yeah, it always is difficult when dealing with uncertainty that is a long period away. But I will point out that, for example, the latter stages of these tax cuts don't kick in until after the next election, and there is still scope for there to be for that to be repealed. If indeed we end up with a situation where the economy doesn't go in a positive direction, all the advice that I'm receiving, including people who are opposed to the full package, suggests that the first 2 stages are a good thing for the economy. We've got a softening economy. This will inject money into that economy to give it some stimulus. It's the third tranche that is the most difficult, and we're seeking to put some safeguards in and around energy prices that will make this a much more certain outcome. Okay,
safeguards around energy prices. You've made that very clear this morning. And am I right in picking up from you today that you are inclined, if you get those safeguards in place, to pass all 3 tranches of this tax cut package? And if there is an economic downturn, it then is up to the future government to repeal that 3rd tranche.
Yeah, that's correct. We always have the option of adjusting our budget as we move forward. That is a responsibility of government. So we're mindful that 3rd stage is a long way away, and there is an opportunity to repeal that. If we ignore the advice of the Reserve Bank Governor and all of the economists that I talk to that suggest stage 1 and 2, which we are comfortable with, will do good for the economy. We have to be very, very careful. So we're talking about the longer term. We're talking about providing some extra assurances to make sure that we don't have a situation where the economy does end up heading south. Look, I point out, if we can keep energy prices down, it's a win for those taxpayers who are getting a tax cut. It's a win for people on New Start. It's a win for people who are on the pension. It's a win for small businesses, and it's a win for big businesses. And in my conversations with Matthias, he understands that.
And how mindful are you of 4 weeks since an election and a pretty clear mandate from the government? Do you see it that way?
Our job as senators is to review every piece of legislation that comes before the Senate and look at it on its merits and pass it. The only mandate that I would suggest exists, noting the word that is not found in the Constitution, is when the government has a majority both in the lower house and in the upper house, and that's not the case here. We have a constitutional role to review every piece of legislation carefully as it comes before us, and that's what we will do.
And is there a loose alliance with Jackie Lambie here?
My colleague Sterling Griffin and I did go to Tasmania last week. We did sit down and have a talk with Jackie. 3 is a magic number in this Senate. With 3 crossbenchers in the context of any controversial legislation, that is legislation opposed by Labor and the Greens. 3 allows the government to get legislation through the Senate. Also, 3 allows a block of legislation through the Senate. And so it makes sense that if Jackie Lambie and Centre Alliance agree on something, that we should work together. So all that we've done is agreed that we'll pick up the phone when legislation is put before the Senate. We'll have a discussion about whether or not we should work together on it or whether or not we shouldn't. So it's very, very loose cooperation.
And just finally, have you had any more calls from Mike Pizzullo?
No, not this week. We'll just have to wait and see whether something happens next week.
Did you really feel that intimidated?
Look, I just felt the phone call was inappropriate. I talk to government officials all of the time, mostly or almost exclusively at the request of ministers, always polite. I just had this, it was just a really unusual call out of the blue. I thought it might have been about the media raids, but it was a call that suggested that I should back off in my commentary or criticism of Home Affairs, and that just is inappropriate.
Senator, thank you for your time.
Thank you.